Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. I'm excited to be here this morning to welcome Dr. Naveed Mohammad as our guest for our View from the Top series. I'm Vanessa White, and I'm proud to serve as the chair of the Board of Directors for the Brampton Board of Trade for 2020. And in my day job, I'm also the Chief Human Resources Officer at Maple Lodge Farms, which is a poultry processing company here in Brampton. A little bit about the Board of Trade. As I'm sure many of you know, we've been working for over 130 years to bring business together and to help us drive prosperity in Brampton. And while 2020 has certainly had a few road bumps for all of us, we continue to do just that. During the pandemic, we've continued to advocate for the issues that are most important to you, and we've continued to bring businesses together and people together to help Brampton's economic growth. Last year, we launched the View from the Top series, and this is an opportunity for us to talk to key leaders in our community about their journey to their current role, their learnings along the way, and the vision that they've had for the city. I'd really like to take a moment to thank Deloitte Private, Sheridan College, and Meridian Credit Union for the support of this series. It's with the support of influential businesses like those that we're able to host these important conversations within our community. As I said earlier, I'm really excited to be here with Dr. Mohammad. I don't think I need to tell anyone how fortunate we are to have Dr. Mohammad with us today, as I can only imagine the pressures that you're facing right now in the midst of the pandemic. I'm going to do a quick introduction of you, Dr. Mohammad, and then we'll turn it over to you for some opening remarks. So for those who don't know him, Dr. Naveed Mohammad became president and CEO of the William Osler Health System in April 2020. Interesting timing for you, I'm sure. Prior to taking this role, Dr. Mohammad was Osler's Executive Vice President, Quality, Medical, and Academic Affairs, where he strengthened quality of care and patient experience. Dr. Mohammad joined Osler in '97 as an emergency physician at the Etobicoke General Hospital, and he's held several progressively senior physician leadership roles, including Osler's Chief of Emergency Services in 2006, and Osler's first Vice President Medical Affairs in 2012. In addition to his experience at Osler, Dr. Mohammad has held key leadership roles outside the organization, including lead of emergency medicine for the former Central West Local Health Integration Network, as a member of the Ontario Hospital Association's Physicians Provincial Leadership Council. He's a passionate advocate for safe quality care and is well respected both inside Osler's walls and beyond as a physician leader in the community and across the province. Dr. Mohammad holds a Bachelor in Biochemistry and Microbiology from the University of Toronto, received his medical degree from the University of Ottawa, and completed his residency in family medicine and emergency certification at the University of Toronto. As we were chatting earlier, I also learned that after med school, he did a road trip to the Maritimes and Newfoundland. So he's got to be a pretty good guy if he took the time out of his busy schedule to do that. He also includes and holds a Global Executive Master's of Business Administration in Healthcare and Life Sciences from the Rotman School of Management at University of Toronto. Dr. Mohammad lives in Brampton with his wife and his two sons. So now I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Mohammad. For those of you who have joined us, please feel free to use the Q&A button or the chat function at the bottom of your screen if you have questions you'd like to submit, and I'll be sure to filter those through to Dr. Mohammad. And if you are slow getting started this morning, I've already got some questions ready to go. So Dr. Mohammad, over to you for some introductory remarks.
Good morning, and thank you, Vanessa. Thank you to the Brampton Board of Trade and everyone present. I appreciate this opportunity, and we value Osler's longstanding relationship with the Board of Trade and the Brampton business community. I do want to thank the local businesses for their support and generosity during this time. As you know, I came into my new role in the middle of the pandemic, and the amount of support, the donations of PPE, of food, and financial donations that have come from the local businesses has really emboldened the spirits of our healthcare frontline heroes, and really has made a difference during this difficult time. As Vanessa told you, my journey and my education, you know, I grew up in Scarborough, and ended up going to Scarborough College, University of Toronto. Always wanted to stay local until I got into medical school, and which is when I went to Ottawa. And I think getting out of the city really gave me a different perspective of all the opportunities across the province. So after medical school, I actually ended up working in many small towns. I was in Sault Ste. Marie, I was in Thessalon, Ontario, I was in Gravenhurst, Bracebridge, Midland, and did do a good portion of my emergency medicine work in Ottawa and in Lindsay before moving back to the Etobicoke area and joining Osler. I love living in Brampton. I love living near the El Dorado Park area. It's a bit of a nature setting right in the middle of the city. And I'm a huge sports fan. I love hockey. I still play ball hockey with a men's league, and I'm an avid golfer. So I know that my name, the name gives you a diverse and ethnic sense as Naveed Mohammad, but whenever I picked small towns, I always made sure that there was a Tim Hortons, a rink, and a Canadian Tire nearby. So I'm as Canadian as anyone gets. So that's my story, and I know that Vanessa has covered a lot of my educational background.
Excellent. I'm gonna build on that story. It sounds like working in the small towns has certainly given you a unique perspective of the diverse needs of many people in many different settings. How did that contribute to the success you've had so far at Osler?
I think the thing is that I remember when I worked in Thessalon. Now, Thessalon is a town of 1,600 people on the north shore of Lake Huron. It's exactly halfway between Sudbury and Sault Ste. Marie. And it had a 16-bed hospital, and one family physician's office, and a nursing home that had 150 beds. So I was the only physician in town. And I think what you learn being in a small town is the importance of that a hospital plays in a community. I know that in Thessalon, many of the people were employed by the hospital, especially those that worked in town. And I know that in Brampton, many of our Bramptonians are employed by us. We are one of the largest, perhaps the largest employer in Brampton. And what you learn is that the person that is coming into the hospital can be your friend, can be your neighbor, or can be the person that you see in the grocery store, at the gas station, or at the hockey rink the next day. So it really gave me a sense of treating everyone as if they were your neighbor and family when you see them as a patient, and bringing that compassion, empathy, and quality to the care that you provide to them. And I've tried to carry that forward in all of the work that we've done, and in the work that we will be doing in the next number of years at Osler. I'm hoping that you will see a lot of that come out and really change the face and the thoughts of our hospital in the community.
That's amazing. It does really make you think about a hospital not just as a place where people go to get well, but really is a place where a community can come together,
right,
to support a community and to support one another in ways that that you don't always get in other places in a city. So I hadn't really ever thought about that before. That's great. We were chatting earlier, and we were talking about how you go to school to be a doctor, and you end up a CEO. Can you talk to us a little bit about that journey and what you've had to do personally to be successful in both those places?
I'm going to go a little bit further back. My dad traveled from Karachi, Pakistan in 1970. He actually traveled by train, bus, and then by train again to come to Germany. And he stayed in Germany for 2 years, and then eventually came to Canada in 1972. And in 1974, he came and got us. And I remember coming here, not being able to speak English at all, and having to learn the language, and then finally deciding that I was going to be a pilot or an artist until my South Asian dad, and for those of us that may be South Asians, we know that whatever dad says is what happens, turned to me and said, you're going to go to medical school, you're going to be a doctor. And that was the end of it in grade 8. So I spent most of my time from grade 8 to grade 13, mostly worrying about whether I will be good enough to get into medical school. And once you get in, then that's where your aspirations start to build, because that was the time that I actually gained confidence that, I actually could do something. And I wanted to be a cardiologist. And I remember when it came time to apply for the internships, I looked at becoming a cardiologist, which was a 6-year journey, or becoming an emergency physician, which was a 3-year journey. And I'll be honest with you, my parents had spent a lot of their savings in putting me and my sister through school, and finding the shortest route to the time that you could actually start to earn an income was the goal that I had, so I can get my parents out of debt and really support the family. So I did emergency medicine, and I loved it, and that's where I met, my colleague, who was the chief of staff right now at Osler, Dr. Frank Martino, and he had a big push in directing me towards emergency medicine. He said that, listen, you're a physician. He was a 3rd-year resident, and I was a 1st-year intern, and he became friends with me, and he said, you're the kind of person that's going to be a good family physician and a good emergency physician. So forget about cardiology, plus you'll get to make money a lot sooner. So I never thought, being at Toronto Western Hospital in 1990, that Frank would be the chief of staff in the hospital, that I would be CEO. So I ended up leaving Toronto after doing emergency medicine to work in small towns, as I talked about, and was forced to come back because my mom was ill in 1997. And when I came back, I was at home for a week living with my parents, and my Pakistani dad came out again and said, listen, you've been back for a week and you don't have a job. Can you find a job and start working? I said, Dad, I've been doing emergency medicine for 4 years. I think I'm okay right now. And he said, no, listen, I spoke to your family doctor, and he's going to let you work in his office tomorrow. I said, my own family doctor? I have to go work with my own family doctor? And I know it's funny. And he said, yeah. And my family doctor was one of the original Pakistani physicians in Toronto. He used to be in downtown Toronto, and he had moved to Malton, of all places. So I said, okay. I showed up in Malton, and his office, started working. And about 2 weeks later, I walked into Etobicoke General and asked the chief of Emerge for a job. He gave me a job, and that's how I came to Osler. It wasn't some big recruitment or fancy recruitment. And I was at Osler for 3 or 4 years, being somewhat candid and vocal to the chief there about how emergency medicine and new ideas in emergency medicine. And I think that led to me being noticed by some people in the organization, sometimes the wrong way, because sometimes they sent angry emails about emergency overcrowding, and they tapped me on the shoulder at that time to become the site chief of Emerge at Etobicoke General. And you never go to medical school to become a chief. You go to medical school to become a physician that's going to treat patients. So that was my first foray into leadership. And really, honestly, I owe a lot to William Osler Health System and the leaders that are there, not only now, but the leaders that have been there in the past, who saw something in me, helped me, go through further leadership development, supported me to go through courses, and thought that maybe I could, lead departments in the hospital, never thinking that I would be the president and CEO. But being here for 23 years and being the president and CEO really has a different feel for the organization and the community, because I'm not a new person coming in from an outside hospital having to learn things right away. And that's what made it so easy for me to start in the middle of a pandemic, because I basically went from vice president to CEO right, without missing a beat. And also, when a patient has a compliment, you take it, you thank the patient, you learn from it. But when a patient or community member has a complaint, you can relate to it, because the last emergency shift that I did was 2 days before I became CEO. So it's not like I can't understand what may be happening in some part of the hospital. And I think that has created a different type of accountability for my team, because when something comes in, I can tell them that, you know what, I think this could have happened at entrance A, or I think this could have happened in X-ray, this could have happened in the emergency department. And I think in the long run, that's only going to get us some great results for the hospital and for the community.
Yeah, it certainly gives you a perspective and an ability to have empathy for your teams that are trying to deliver service under really tough circumstances often, as well as empathy for the patients. So I think that makes for a great blend. I think, you know, when we look at, you know, what's the most defining feature of really successful CEOs, it typically is high levels of empathy. So it sounds like your experiences have led you to this role and given you the tools that you'll need to be successful. I'm going to segue into, we've got tons of questions coming in from people who are viewing. So let's see, this one is, someone says, yes, they certainly agree how important the central role of a hospital in the community is. But they say that as a citizen, they've been frustrated by communication about the pandemic. How has Osler worked to deliver clear, concise, and consistent messaging?
Yeah, so our messaging has gone through various different channels. In terms of, you know, one of the first things that we had to take care of was how we're communicating a lot of the initial information and the ongoing information to our staff. So as you can imagine, I know that within the community, there was a significant amount of anxiety at the beginning about, well, should we wear a mask? Should I wash hands? Should I have a full bodysuit on? Is this airborne? And that anxiety was multiplied in the hospital with our staff not knowing which patient that walks in may or may not have COVID. And we had at one point 150 COVID positive patients across Osler. So inside the hospital, what we've done is that we have really created, at one time it was twice a week, and now it's gone to once every second week, town halls. And those town halls are broadcast virtually, just like this event. And we have anywhere from 1,400 to 1,700 staff on a town hall. So inside, we're really doing a significantly enhanced job in keeping our staff informed. Each one of our senior leadership and executive team members are making sure that they each get to at least one department on a weekly basis to have a one-on-one or a more personal conversation. Outside, we have, you know, we've got our Instagram pages, our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn avenues. We're also using the local media to make sure that we get a lot of information out, whether it may be the Brampton Guardian or other media outlets. We've also made sure that we've been on a lot of the ethnic media outlets. I've been on a significant number of radio and TV shows. We take part in the City of Brampton press conference that is hosted by Mayor Brown on a weekly basis, and we make sure that we are there at least once or twice a month, and that's broadcast on, I think it's on CP24. And lastly, we attend the City of Brampton Town Hall that is also run by the city and City Hall. So I'm a regular on that town hall that usually has anywhere from, I think sometimes 8,000 to 12,000 people. So we're really trying to be very multidimensional in getting the information out. One of the biggest concerns that patients and I guess community members have had is the visiting guidelines. And I want to just clarify that the visiting guidelines are handed to us by the province. So the province decides, you know, what are the visiting guidelines, and then the hospital has a little bit of leeway. So we try to get our visiting guidelines out onto our website on a regular basis because they continue to change. And in the beginning, there weren't many visitors allowed, and then we've tried to lighten that those restrictions over time. But recently, in the last couple of weeks, as you've heard, with the increased number of cases, we've had to tighten that again.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's certainly been really challenging to whether you're a leader in an organization or a member of the community, and many of us are both, trying to navigate through the information and keep people informed when it's changing a lot is really challenging. I love that you're doing the internal town halls, because we've found that's been really effective too, is making sure that our leadership teams have consistent and clear information to share. I think that's really important. But I've got to ask, because I know how hard it's been to keep people focused and motivated in our workplace. How are you guys managing your staff? It's got to be really tough to keep people motivated.
It's actually easier because I've found, since I've been at Osler, we've had SARS, we've had H1N1, we've had Ebola. I don't know if you remember, but the first potential case of Ebola actually came from Pearson Airport right to Brampton Civic. Now, it turned out to be not Ebola, but those 2 or 3 days were really significant for us. We've managed the Air France plane crash that occurred at Pearson a number of years ago. And I have found that the resilience of our teams as healthcare workers really comes out in times like this. One of the questions that we have asked in our executive staff rounding and in our town halls is that what has happened during COVID that you think we should continue as an organization moving forward? And each time the answer that has come is that COVID has brought the staff closer together as a team and as a family, closer together as a team of healthcare professionals that are looking out for each other and supporting each other. So for us, I have found that it's actually been easier to bring staff together. We have town halls and we have discussions with our staff that talk about how are things at home. I know, do you have kids going to school? Are you feeling any stress about kids going to school? And I'm finding that we're working together as a family and as a team much more cohesively, because I think what happens is that as healthcare workers, you innately want to help the community at times like this. The other thing that's really helped, and I mentioned this at the beginning, is the number of people that have stepped up to donate to us in one way or the other. We still have a number of volunteers that want to come in and work, despite the fact that there's an enhanced risk of course, being exposed to COVID when you're in a hospital setting. We've had every type of organization, big or small, show up with food donations. There was a time that we had two of our vice presidents in charge of food donations only, just to receive food donations and spread them throughout the organization. I think it's been well over 6,000 or 7,000 meals that have come to Osler. The amount of people that have stepped up to donate PPE, to create masks for us, and to donate in terms of finances if they're not donating food or PPE. And we had our golf tournament last week for Etobicoke General, and it was the golf. We were afraid as to what's going to happen during COVID with the golf tournament, and it was the fastest golf tournament. It was a golf tournament that sold out the fastest. It sold out in a number of weeks, in a number of days. So yes, the staff has been resilient. The staff has become closer, but I think the part that the community and the businesses in the community have played has been a big push towards that.
Amazing. Your ability to find a silver lining through all this really speaks to you must have a very optimistic spirit. So I think that's probably an absolute job requirement these days. I want to go back to, you were talking about how important some mentors and coaches that you've had along the way have been, as well as, giving candid and vocal feedback to the people that you worked for have been a couple of things that have really helped shape your career. We do have someone, this is someone who must be a viewer after my own heart, who's wondering if women have been influential in your career and how women mentors have helped shape you.
I think I'm going to start with my mom first. It's right. The strength and resilience and the optimism that has been built has been through my mom and grandmother's journey. through their early years. And then, when you're a physician, a male physician leader in any department, you usually have what we call clinical directors. We work in dyads. You have a physician and a nursing leader, and more often than not, the nursing leader has been a female, because many of our nurses have been females. I can name off a number of people, but Willa McCon was one of our first patient experience officers when I first became chief of Emerge. And when you're the Emerge physician, Emerge chief, you get a lot of complaints. Most of the complaints are about wait time and compassion or empathy or communication. Kiki Ferrari came to Osler. Kiki is our chief operating officer right now. Kiki Ferrari came to Osler in 2009, and that was at the height of the Brampton Civic Emergency Department opening and us growing. And Kiki Ferrari's role in shaping the Brampton Civic Emergency Department and helping me shape the Brampton Civic Emergency Department was really a key change point in my career, because that was the time that I thought that, okay, you know what, I'm going to be the chief of Emerge, and I'm going to go back and start seeing patients only, and going back home and resting and watching Hockey Night in Canada, because the things are not, you can't really change things in healthcare. But she brought a different outlook and helped me strengthen, not only as a person, but also as a leader. And I'll give you an example. I know that you've been talking to Kara. Kara Francis, our Chief Communications Officer, and her predecessor, Susan Durick and Val Carter. And I can tell you, it's always very smart to talk to one of those three before you get in front of a camera or you get in front of a media outlet, to tell them what you're going to say, and then they tell you the right things to say. So this hasn't been about male mentors. This has been about everybody that I've worked with has had a significant part in shaping me into the person that I am today.
Amazing. All right, I'm going to shift gears completely here and kind of gear this a little more towards the business community, because I would guess that most of the people on our call this morning are representatives from the business community. So I want to talk about the fact that one of our pillars of our advocacy at the Board of Trade is investment attractiveness. We spend a lot of time making sure that Brampton is a great place to start and grow and sustain business. Healthcare obviously plays a huge role in that. Can you tell me what the current timeline for the next phase of Peel Memorial is, and what's the outlook for a third hospital in Brampton?
Yeah, so, on the first part of your statement, a vibrant and active hospital will build a very vibrant and prosperous community. We are a major employer for our community. We have a payroll that is well over $530 million. And, I know that we help drive the local economy. It's one of the reasons why the leaders of Brampton have been so active in making sure that there's a healthcare presence in downtown Brampton, where we have Peel Phase 1 right now. We bring many opportunities for businesses, investment, and industry. And I know that, our journey as a city to becoming a healthcare hub with a lot of health technology institutions, with Ryerson now working with the city, really, has its roots in the fact that we have such a busy hospital with many great programs. And when you attract new businesses, you also draw the really expert physicians that may want to only work in a university setting. And we're finding that at Brampton Civic, we're having physicians come from all kinds of settings. Peel Phase 2, we have made a submission to the Ministry of Health earlier this year. And we're just waiting for direction from the ministry. We were hoping to get that direction a little bit earlier. We made the submission way before the pandemic actually took hold, but the pandemic and the issues with COVID has really directed the ministry in a different direction. Now, that doesn't mean that we haven't been actively speaking to the ministry about PO Phase 2. We've been in regular contact with the Assistant Deputy Minister, with the Deputy Minister, with the Minister of Health, and with the Premier about PO Phase 2. And I foresee an announcement coming in the next few months about PO Phase 2. Hopefully some good news. We did work with a 20-year population growth projection, so we didn't put a submission in that was going to address the needs of the community for today. We actually went up to the next 20 years so that we can have services and space up and running to meet the population growth. And that is much longer range than most other hospital redevelopment projects, and mostly go for 5 to 10 years. We've got a specialized care focus, and the focus is on integrated care. PO Phase 2 will also create capacity in Brampton Civic because we will be creating a number of beds at PO Phase 2 that will help us move some of the more chronic patients from Brampton Civic to the second phase of PO, which will open up more space at Brampton Civic for more of the acute or sicker patients, or patients that are more early in their illness. The other thing that we've pushed for with PO Phase 2 is that we want to take our urgent care center that is at Peel Memorial right now into a 24/7 emergency department. And that's part of the proposal. Now, if the proposal gets approved, and it takes us 4 to 6 years to build PO Phase 2, we can actually go to the 24/7 emergency department much sooner than that, because the department already exists. We just have to change some of the processes and the hours. Now, the government approvals can be multi-stage. I suspect they're going to come back to us and may want us to do a small adjustment to the proposal. Usually that's what happens. And then soon after that, an approval and an announcement comes. In terms of a third hospital, we have engaged with the city on their planning process and other priority needs, such as expansion of our cardiology program, expansion of our cancer program. And we're working closely with the city and within our redevelopment team to see how we're going to phase each one of these things in. I know that the community has a significant amount of pride in their healthcare services, and that will be a critical enabler for us. What we need to think about is that if I, for example, ask for the enhancement of our cancer program, we may be able to get that done in the next 5 to 7 years. If we are going to push for a new hospital, we may not get that for the next 13 to 15 years. And the strategy that we have to think about is that, do we want to get some of these services in place sooner while we're working for a third hospital, or do we just go for a third hospital, which means that the gap in between will be longer, and we'll have to manage that. And that is always a difficult decision, one way or the other.
Yeah, it's really critical that you keep your eye on your strategy during these discussions around, staying true to what it is you're truly trying to achieve, so that you don't forego forego an opportunity because you were focused on a different prize. So
yeah,
our fingers will be.
I just want to give you an example. For example, we have a very, very comprehensive oncology and cancer program at Osler. So, God forbid if somebody gets an issue, we can do a biopsy, find out that you may have a cancer lesion, do surgery right away to remove that lesion, get you a world-class oncologist at Osler, get you therapy that is based on your genetic makeup and which genes may be triggering the cancer, and get you the chemotherapy. We can do all of that. Now, if you need radiation, then we need to send you to Princess Margaret, Sunnybrook, Cardiff Valley, or Trillium. So if we don't enhance our cancer program, then we'll continue to have our community members go further away to get radiation therapy. And for those of you that may have experienced radiation therapy, you have to go for radiation for 35 to 40 days, 5 days a week. So that means that you have to drive to Sunnybrook or Princess Margaret. So the question that we're asking is that, do we solve that problem in the next 5 years? Or do we tag that in the new hospital and have our community have the inconvenience of traveling for the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's the same with cardiac surgery. Is a lot of our patients that need cardiac surgery, we can't do it at Brampton Civic or Etobicoke General. We have to send them to another hospital, and then there's the distance and travel. So that's what we try to balance in terms of the needs of the individual patient and the individual family member.
Absolutely. Well, our fingers are crossed for you on the upcoming announcement, and certainly if there's any advocacy you could use support on from the Brampton Board of Trade, let us know, because we'd be happy to help.
Thank you.
We've had a great question come in, so I want to get to this. Amidst COVID, do you still believe there is room for adoption of innovation at Osler? And can you comment on succession plans for Dr. Ron? I may mispronounce this, Heslegraf.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure who that was.
For sure.
But I think this is a great question, because again, as a leader in our own business, boy, it's been hard to stay focused on moving forward when you're just trying to get through every day. So I'm very curious to hear how you guys are doing that as well.
Yeah, first of all, Ron Hesselgrave was our very first chief of research. In 2012, when I became Vice President of Medical Affairs, one of the things that I was tasked with was to start the building of a research program at Osler. And if you know that Osler is not a teaching hospital, we're a community hospital. We have a strong association with McMaster, but it's not the type of place that you think of as having research happening. You usually think of Mars downtown, or University of Toronto, or Toronto General University Health System. But what is surprising to know is that at any one point, we have anywhere from 150 to 250 research projects happening at Osler, with Osler patients, with different processes. Some of them are clinical, some of them are non-clinical. So we really felt that was a unique opportunity to build a research program, and we brought Ron in as our Chief Research Officer. Ron had an untimely passing a couple of months ago. It was difficult for us to lose Ron as one of our research leaders. And we are actively now getting ready to replace Ron and going through a recruitment process. We'll never replace Ron, but we're going to find somebody that will be able to carry the torch forward in where we want to be in research. In terms of innovation, as part of our strategic plan, building innovation and enhancing innovation at Osler was one of the main things that we wanted to achieve over the next number of years, and that target has not changed. We've had a bit of a restructuring. Once I became the CEO, we restructured our leadership team, but innovation and having an expert lead innovation is a key part of our leadership team. And one of the things that we want to bring, or certainly I want to bring to Osler, is to help people understand that if you find a different way of, say, filling out a form, or taking a form and making it electronic, that's not the innovation that I'm talking about. I'm talking about innovation where you can take a process, you can trial it and prototype it, and then you can scale it up so that it's not only all across Osler, but it's all across other healthcare organizations. And that's the kind of innovation that we want to impact. And COVID actually, it goes back to the question about resiliency and how have you kept your staff motivated. COVID actually has pushed us to become more innovative. It was very difficult for us to bring physicians to see patients virtually, or to assess patients' symptoms virtually, or to monitor patients virtually. And we've now been able to move many of our clinics into a virtual phase. We're just starting a project called the Virtual Urgent Care, where patients that are what we call CTAS 4 and 5, which means that you may have a sore ankle, or you may have fallen and hurt yourself, something minor in the emergency. We will be starting a project where you can actually speak to a physician virtually. And if the physician thinks that you need an X-ray, when you come to the emergency, the x-ray paper is ready for you. So you can go right to x-ray, get the x-ray done, and then come and see the physician. So we're starting to do a lot of innovative things, almost being forced by this pandemic to decrease crowding in the hospital, to decrease a person's exposure to the hospital. Our assessment centers, which are doing the swabs for COVID, we're doing anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000 swabs a day. And the ministry, as you may know, last Friday came out and said that you can't do them as walk-ins and drive-ups anymore. They must be done by appointments. So we had from last Friday till this Tuesday, which was 4 days, 2 of which were weekend days, to come up with an online appointment system so that patients can log in online and get an appointment to the assessment center. And I think we're going to have that up and running in the next couple of days. And we've also got a very exciting new dashboard where I can go on from within the hospital or remotely or on my iPhone or on my smartphone and see exactly what's happening in the organization in terms of COVID patients, how many we've had, how many discharges. So COVID has actually pushed many of our organizations to be more innovative because of the necessity of decreasing the number of patients that are in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the old saying, necessity breeds innovation, right? It's really true. We've seen that in our business too. And again, when you try and find silver linings in this, it's you start to understand when it comes to innovation that part of why businesses and organizations don't always innovate is because they don't feel the urgency to do so.
Yeah, and one of the last,
but then when the urgency is there, what they can accomplish is just unbelievable.
And one of the last things I wanted to say was that, I did talk about visiting hours being restricted. We have virtual visiting hours now. We are booking iPads in the hospital for patients. Patients can book an iPad for an hour, and then they can, talk to their family online. And if you imagine an 80-year-old grandmother that has been in Canada, has come from Punjab, India for the last just only 10 years ago, is not really akin to using an iPad. But now our patients, our seniors are using that in the hospital because that's the only way they can see some of their family members. So this has really made a difference for us and really pushed us towards some new innovative techniques.
I love that. That's fantastic. Again, just looking at the questions that are coming in, it looks to me like we've got a few people who are from, who have a medical background and are looking to you for a couple of things. Some advice on it's sort of the what advice would you give your younger self question, and then for people who are specifically interested in wanting to join the team at Osler, and what process or what avenue they can take to try and achieve working for you.
So what advice would I give my younger self? I don't know. I think for me, one of the things that I did was that I listened to my parents or my elders or family members that have been through life and through the difficulties in life. And I know that sometimes, I have two boys, one is 20 and one is 17. Sometimes that's why I'm sitting in a gaming chair. Sometimes, you think that you know way more than your parents because you may be much more well-versed on the internet and social media and IT, but really, I don't know what I would have been doing if I didn't listen to my dad when he said, you must become a doctor. And I know that involves a lot of steps that I had to take in terms of working hard and trying to get the marks to get into medical school. But I always tell, especially kids that are of my generation, that your parents or your grandparents spent a lot of time and took a huge risk in traveling to another country to build a new life. So make sure that you accomplish something for yourself. The other thing is that I think listening to your mentors and really understanding that they may have been down the path that you're going and they may give you some good advice. Each time I had a leadership job, whether it was the chief of Emerge at Etobicoke site chief or the vice president of medical affairs, each time I was pushed into applying for it, because sometimes you don't know your own capabilities or your own potential. You get into a comfort space where you think that, you know what, I'm going to come in and do my emergency medicine shift and then go play golf or go play hockey or go do something at home, as opposed to really trying to impact the community in some other way. And most of my career, Matt Anderson called me into his office and said that, many people are saying that you might be a good candidate for the VP job. Why don't you apply for it? Or Kate Greenway, who used to be our old previous chief of emerg, said that, people, I know you want to go back to emergency medicine as a physician, but people think that it might be good for you to apply. So I think the fact that I listened to them has been a big life changer for me. In terms of working for Osler, I can tell you we are on a big hiring drive right now. And not only will we be posting some leadership positions, we will also be posting a lot of our frontline positions, because the ministry is trying to build capacity within the system across the province by providing more beds for many of the organizations. And the biggest, you can always find physical space, you can always buy beds, and you can always buy IV poles and monitors, and the biggest commodity that's difficult to get is human resources. And we are right now on a drive to hire more nurses, more porters, more clerks, more PSWs, more RPNs. So if you go to our website, you will be able to find the opportunities. One of the things that I have tried to change, and I've guided my HR team on, and I don't want to come across as critical, is that I've asked them not to hire people just for the sake of hiring people, just because we need to have somebody by that bedside, in the next 2 weeks. I want to bring people to Osler that are going to remain at Osler and that bring quality, compassion, empathy, and the qualifications that we need, because that's the only way we're going to be able to serve our patients and our community to the best of our abilities. And I think sometimes in the past, healthcare organizations have been in crunch time and they've hired people, and then they found a year or two later that it wasn't the right decision. So we're trying to be a little bit selective. At the same time, we're trying to fill the positions that we need to fill.
Well, and speaking as an HR leader and a career HR leader, it's challenging. We're in such a tight labor market, but I absolutely agree with you. And it's the same way that I coach my team at Maple Lodge, which is hire for values first, because that will always serve us better in the long term. And it's not about just finding someone. Often it's not even just about the qualifications. It's about finding the best talent for us, not just the best talent out there, because those are two very different things. And I do believe that that's how you shape a culture of an organization. The only way to do it, you can't do it through your communications plan. You have to do it through your people. Because if those two things are misaligned, then in our case, our customers, but in your case, your patients will know that very quickly. So good luck with your hiring. We're undergoing the same thing, obviously very different types of roles, but a very similar challenge. So, and that focus on retention, getting people in who are going to come and stay with you and become part of your culture is really critical. I think we have time probably for one more question. So, this is an interesting one. Can you comment on other underlying conditions like chronic health conditions in Brampton, such as diabetes, and how these underlying chronic conditions have been exacerbated by COVID? The question is, would you agree that we have, in some cases, a pandemic within the pandemic that's really been highlighted by COVID in Brampton?
I can tell you that we haven't had to wait for COVID to tell us that we have a pandemic of diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, and kidney disease or renal disease in Brampton, or in this region in Northwest Toronto. I can tell you that the region of Peel has the highest incidence of diabetes in Canada. And then specifically within the region of Peel, the area that is just west of 427 and I think it's north of Highway 7. That area has the highest concentration of diabetes of anywhere in Canada. And this is really manifested in the type of patients we see and the challenges that we face at Brampton Civic and Etobicoke General. One of the reasons many physicians want to work in our hospitals is that we don't see the bread and butter medicine. We don't see somebody that comes in with pneumonia, we give them antibiotics for 7 days and then they're gone. Or somebody that comes in with minor stuff. We have those people, but we get a large number of people that have multiple chronic illnesses and are very complicated. Diabetes leads to heart disease, stroke, and kidney disease. We have one of the largest renal programs with the number of dialysis stations that we have, Peel Memorial, Brampton Civic, and Etobicoke General. Between those three sites, we dialyze more than 350 people on a daily basis. The amount of heart disease that we have in this region is significant. We have one of the largest angiogram and angioplasty program, the cardiac interventional program and the cardiac diagnostics programs. And we have systems where somebody may come in with a heart attack and we bypass them through the emergency. We don't even take them into the emergency. We take them from the door right up to the cath lab upstairs to get the needle and the balloon within their heart. So one of the biggest reasons that we are behind the 8 ball in terms of beds, in terms of patient flow, and in terms of our volumes is the prevalence of diabetes in our community. And then with COVID, with COVID, the people that have succumbed to COVID are usually people that are above a certain age or people that have 1 or 2 other comorbidities, which means that they may have heart disease, diabetes, lung disease, renal disease. When those patients get COVID, they're the ones that end up in the ICU and they're the ones that end up on ventilators. And it's one of the reasons that there's been such a push in this region to try to control this illness and try to really promote social distancing, hand washing, and masking, and for our community to really understand that as a 20-year-old, you may be able to get through COVID, but when you expose everybody around you, that's where the problems will start.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to hand it over to you for some closing remarks. I think we could, maybe it would be great if you could kick those off with, because I don't think we can share this message enough, is what's your advice for us as business leaders, but also as members of the community to help us manage through wave 2 and into the first part of next year as effectively as we can as a city.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that we need to understand is that right now we're not seeing a second wave. I think we're seeing a resurgence of COVID, a resurgence of the first wave. We've had linear growth in our numbers, not exponential growth. And once it becomes exponential, then you can define it as a second wave. And in our community, many people have felt this myth that, look at all the international students that are coming in, look, we've opened the borders and everybody's bringing in COVID. Right now, in the detailed studies that have been done in the region of Peel, COVID is cycling between households or within households with social gatherings, whether they may be a wedding at a banquet hall or a party in your backyard, and workplaces in Peel. Those are the 3 places. And the reason for that is that I think people let their guard down in late July and mid-August a bit when things did get better. We've had over 11,000 positive COVID-19 cases, and we've tested more than 200,000 people in this region. Osler has the highest number of COVID tests that we've done. So the advice is, please, please, please take seriously all the advice that your physicians, your community leaders, your public health leaders are giving you. Hand washing, masking, and social distancing is the key. You want to see your family, please FaceTime them. Even if you're invited to a party, do not attend. And try to stay home as much as you can. And if you're going outside, wear a mask and take a little portable hand sanitizer with you, because sometimes you go try on something at a store, or you grab a hockey stick or something, a tool that you want to buy at Home Depot. You don't know who has touched it before you. So we have to be really, really careful. We have to really socially distance, and we'll beat this. It's just that our region is at an even higher risk because of the impact of chronic disease in our region.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so hard, because many of us on this call have worked so hard, particularly those of us who are in essential services, to do everything that we can to keep employees safe at work. We can put in the procedures, we can put in the protocols, we can put in the equipment and the sanitizing and all that good stuff. To know that where it could all fall apart is based on how people behave after they leave work and what they choose to do in their personal time is, because we can't control that. We have to rely on people to make smart decisions. So I agree. Anytime that we can spread that message out to people around, really those three key points: social distance, wear a mask, wash your hands. And I agree, we will get through this, but let's not make it harder on ourselves than we need it to be. Okay, we've got about 4 minutes left, so why don't we just turn it over to you for just some final remarks, if you have anything else, and then we'll be on our way.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the Brampton Board of Trade for giving me this opportunity. And I know you said at the beginning how difficult it may be, but I think I know for a fact that these types of things are the things that I want to attend and really help the community, whether it's our business community or our community overall, understand what's happening at Osler, what we're trying to do, what our challenges are, and how the community and the business community can help us. So thank you. It's been a great conversation, and I think I'm happy that I've been able to tell you about some of my background and how my career has been shaped and how I got to Brampton, how I got to Osler. I want to acknowledge go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I also want to acknowledge the audience, for participating, but also for asking some very candid and very excellent questions. I want to recognize our healthcare heroes, our staff. And there are healthcare heroes in Brampton, but there are also our public health teams, our paramedics, our firemen and firewomen, and our policemen and policewomen. Our social workers that are out there, dealing with the homeless, or people that may be dealing with some addictions. Each one of these people are working during COVID and are continuing to do their job and risking their own health. And these are our true heroes across the community. So if you come across any one of these people, please, do give them a shout out. And lastly, I want to thank the business community in Brampton for their generosity and for their support. And one thing that I will promise you is that if anything that's going to change is that we're going to really fight for resources for healthcare in this region. We have an excellent relationship with City Council and with the province. I think we're going to get some good results over the next number of years. And you will see a change in the way things are being done at Osler, especially when it comes to access, compassion, and empathy. And I hope to bring that to you with all of my team members and every one of the staff members at Osler.
Oh, that's fabulous to hear. Thank you so much. I think Brampton is very lucky to have you in the role that you're in, and to have the teams at Osler working for us to help keep our community safe and also help build our community and through that our business community. I'd also like to thank everybody who joined us for our event today. Great turnout, so thanks to all, and to those who gave us some questions. We do have a few events coming up that I will quickly remind you about. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., the team from BSC Solutions is going to walk us through the current landscape of cybersecurity threats. And at 1 o'clock tomorrow, we welcome Bridgepoint Financial to talk about expropriation and how to support your business through major construction disruptions. And of course, our most exciting upcoming event is on October 20th. That's our virtual Business Excellence Awards, and we are excited to host that virtually. It's going to be an amazing event, and always nice to celebrate, particularly during times like these. So for more information on those, please just pop over to bramptonbot.com, and you can find all the information there on those events. And it looks like the team is posting those in the chat, those links in the chat function as well. Thank you again, Dr. Mohammad. I wish you a great day. Keep doing what you're doing, and thanks again to you and your team.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.